Hello friends, it's my privilege today to welcome my dear friend and customer, John Kochavatr. What I like most about John, one of the people most interested in technology, but not for technology's sake. He really sees the power behind technology, outsized business impact. I have seen John always questioning, challenging us, how we can use technology to make transformative changes in the lives of people, in the lives of his customers. He has built an amazing team at Portland General, and that was recognized when John was awarded the CIO of the Year in 2022 for the state of Oregon. So, see, when it comes to the core mission of an electric utility, that does not change. It's to provide safe, reliable, affordable, and now also sustainable energy. But how you go about achieving this, that differs. That differs based on your demography, regulatory environment, weather, and many other things. What are some unique characteristics of the Portland market that is driving your corporate strategy?
Yeah, great. So, I would start by saying that Portland, Oregon is in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So think of Seattle, Washington, and then of course California, where you live. There's a certain ethos, I think, in the Western United States around sustainability and decarbonization, which is part of our mission. So some of the unique characteristics of Oregon. We have the largest voluntary renewable program in the nation, right, in the United States, and 13 years in a row. The citizens and the residents of Oregon really believe in sustainable energy and renewable energy. We are a place that continues to grow load for energy is growing within Oregon. The single biggest driver for load growth is data centers. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is we have a broad mix of energies: wind, solar, hydro, and natural gas. We've eliminated the last coal plant. So I think that's one driver. You've got 5 fiber network cables that come across the Pacific. Some go to Australia, some go to Asia. That terminates on the coast of Oregon. And then there's a terrestrial line that goes into Hillsboro, Oregon, which is our service territory. So when you think about latency, it's low latency if you want to communicate with Asia and get data out to the rest of the United States. So that's another sort of driver. And I would say, it's the clean energy. That's when you talk to data centers, virtually all of them will want 100% clean energy. And that's something that we work with our customers to be able to provide.
So about 2 questions, what you just said about load growth driven primarily by data centers. So one is, I suppose this is good for business. Good for business for Portland General, good for overall Oregon state, right? I mean, these businesses are coming to the state. Now, you have to plan for this, right? What are some 2 or 3 key things? And if you can focus a little bit more from IT perspective also, because these bring opportunities, these bring threats.
Yeah.
These bring accountabilities, right? And how do you prepare to support this load growth? And also, how do you prepare to incentivize more and more organizations to bring their data center to the state?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. And what I would start with is, you heard Saurabh talk about the importance of reliable, affordable, and clean energy. So you'll often hear it called the trilemma, because I can give you 2 of those, but to give you all 3 is very challenging, right? So I can do reliable and affordable, but not necessarily clean, because then I can just burn a bunch of coal plants and natural gas plants to get you there. Or I can do reliable and clean, but it's going to cost a lot of money, right? So that's what we talk about with the trilemma. And so when I think about our territory and our customers, I'm going to talk about our customers in really three categories. One is residential, and then there's commercial and industrial. So let me talk about the commercial and industrial first, because you talked about data centers. I think what helps attract data centers or any other C&I or to our service territory is being able to get reliable, affordable, and clean energy. Some of the challenges that we're running into right now is the load growth is so significant. We expected significant growth in things like data centers, but just not as much as we've seen post-pandemic, right? Or since the pandemic started, I should say. And one of the big drivers behind that is this clean energy thing. You could build 1,000 wind farms somewhere in Oregon or out of state, but you have to get those, there's still a physics problem. You have to get the electrons to the service territory, and that requires transmission lines. And in the United States, at least, it takes probably 10 to 15 years to get transmission lines built, because you have to go through people's properties, get permission, permitting. So I'd say that's one component of the challenge, to get clean energy in. Another component is even if you get it into the service territory, you have to get it to the physical location of where, for example, the data center is. And then you run into capacity constraints, because we built this grid 130 years ago, and there weren't data centers 130 years ago. There weren't silicon manufacturers 130 years ago. So there's a lot of upgrades that need to happen. And so that's part of the challenge that we run into as well. And then the other thing that I would say is that, and this is where I'm gonna bring in the residential and the technology piece. The other thing that we run into is that when you start to deploy all of this new technology for renewable energy, wind farms, solar farms, the reality is the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. And so this goes back to, I can give you reliable and clean, but it's going to be very expensive. So it's really balancing all of that. So some of what we see where technology plays a role is if load or demand for energy peaks during a very hot day or a very cold day, instead of providing the generation, which may not be available, you can manage load, right? And so managing load can come in the form of a thermostat. You can allow the utility to control it. That's one component of technology. Two is electric vehicles. Maybe you can charge your electric vehicle outside of the peak load windows, and we can control that either through the OEM, the auto manufacturer. You can control it through the charger. Those are a couple of other areas where we can integrate with those devices. Rooftop solar. If you have solar panels in your home, all of that is managed by software. Similarly, with battery storage, there's Wi-Fi hot water heater. So there's a lot of different devices that you can connect to manage the load. But I will take a step further, and then you have to orchestrate that onto the grid. That's where technology also plays a role. So I would say, that was a lot, but there has never been a more exciting time to be in the electric utility business. And I'm excited, obviously, to talk about it.
Yeah, John, when you talk about these points you just mentioned, these are very core corporate goals. And I think you have a formula to make sure that whatever we do in IT, it's in perfect harmony with the business goal of the organization. You call that 4M. I would really like you to share what 4M means.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Saurabh. So what Saurabh was describing is the importance of driving measurable outcomes. And so what I tell my team is the only thing worse than wasting customers' money is wasting people's time. I think all of us take pride in the work that we do, and we want it to translate into something meaningful, something that's measurable. And so we came up with what we call the 4 M's.
Yeah.
And those are really metrics in measuring outcomes. So it's money, megawatts, minutes interrupted, and metric tons of CO2 equivalents. So you'll hear me say that a lot. If you're going to propose a new project, help me understand how it ties to the 4 M's. Again, money, megawatts, minutes interrupted, this is customer minutes interrupted, or metric tons of CO2 equivalents. And we use that all the time now. So whenever people are putting business cases, it has to tie back to one or more of the 4 M's.
Yeah, it's the 4M business case. It's easier done for capital projects. But I personally believe that the core operational efficiency is the foundation on which you can really build these capital programs. So how do you make sure these 4 M's apply to operational efficiency also, and how do you see the potential of using partners like HCL in driving some of these efficiencies?
Yeah, and I think the way that I look at that, and let me kind of talk about the 4 M's, and I'll talk about some of the work we've done with HCLTech over the years. So let's start with money, right? The way that it works is that if we can reduce our cost to serve customers, we can reduce our revenue requirement, which means that we can lower prices for customers. Or maybe not lower it in an inflationary environment, but we can mitigate the inflation that customers experience, right? So that's the money piece of it, and that's where operational efficiency comes in. So next is megawatts. So megawatts is really multifaceted. One is, I want more megawatts, meaning I want more businesses to come into my service territory to buy more power. Because if I can do that, I can spread the fixed cost of my infrastructure to all of my customers and actually lower their rates. That's the idea, right? So you can imagine if we increased our customer base by 50% and I can serve them with the same infrastructure, we can lower prices for everybody in the service territory. So that's getting more megawatts. But there's also this idea of a virtual power plant. And what that means is that if there's megawatts that I can conserve, right? So remember the load management conversation that we had earlier. If I can reduce the load because I can control those megawatts, that also reduces customer prices because now I don't have to go buy those megawatts in the open market. And usually when you're buying megawatts in the open market, so is everybody else on the West Coast of the United States, and prices go way up, right? And I could talk through some of the economics if you'd like. So that's megawatts. Minutes interrupted. For those that know the utility industry, customers expect their lights to stay on. We all expect our lights to stay on. But when they don't stay on, we deploy a crew to help resolve that issue. That's O&M, known as operations and maintenance costs for us. The way that we think about it at Portland General, at least, is that you can deploy capital to put a preventative measure in so that the customers don't lose power. That's beneficial for the customer, it's beneficial for PGE, and it reduces O&M. So as I think about the technologies that we've deployed, it includes the Oracle customer to meter technology. We just launched this 2 weeks ago. VJ, who is part of HCLTech, was a big part of it. He did a phenomenal job. It is the first implementation, as I understand it, in the United States. And I think it's the third in the world that we've done. And I'm really proud, not only of Portland General, but with HCL being a part of making that happen. That allows us to scale different programs for different customers to meet our decarbonization goals and to meet the expectations that customers have of us. Yeah.
Let's good time to talk a little bit about customer engagement. I know you are very, very passionate about customer engagement. If I look at the utility market a little bit broadly, there is a basic struggle at many utilities. The customer must feel that this utility is easy to do business with. So before you can even start talking about value-added engagements, I should be able to contact through the channel I want, at the time I want. I should be able to see my bill on the device I want, channel I want. I should be able to make payments at the time I want, at the frequency I want, right? how do you make sure that you really fire on both cylinders, that you take care of basic first, and then you really start engaging on things like demand response and virtual power plants?
And I think you shared a lot of great examples there, Saurabh. I think traditionally, the utility would generate electrons and consumers would consume them, and it was done in the construct of a regulated monopoly. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago we really elevated this idea of trying to create a customer experience that would bring a degree of engagement that we hadn't seen before. And it started with our customer experience touchpoints program, which is Oracle Customer Contact and Billing System, which has now been upgraded to the Customer to Meter program. But over the last 5 years, we've really elevated it in a big way. So if I think about the channels that you had mentioned, Saurabh, one is we took our website to the cloud. We use Google Cloud Platform for that. And that's great because we also changed out the customer identity access management system. One, so it could scale. In fact, everything that I'm about to tell you is all about scale. Two is interoperability. So I'll give an example. One of the things that we want to add as an option for the customer identity access management system is multi-factor authentication. And now it's just flipping a switch instead of building this whole thing. So that was one of the big changes on the web channel. On the mobile platform channel, we launched our first mobile application in 2019. And that's gotten some great adoption. You can see the outage map on your mobile device and report outages, which is great. We've also added the intelligent voice assistant, which is natural language processing. We moved from the old intelligent or the interactive voice response, the IVR, the touchstone thing. Now you can just talk into it. And I think that's really changed the game for us. We've added proactive outage alerts. So we use the Twilio technology. I can say this because you all are tech people. That allows us to do two-way texting with customers on SMS. And I think that's been really rich because now when customers lose their power, we can tell them, we know you lost your power. That way you don't have to call us. Or when it gets reactivated, within 300 seconds, you'll know you got your power back on, right? So those are some of the technologies that we've introduced to lift up the customer experience.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, John. You talked about at scale. I think let me ask follow up on that. I think the great things you're trying to achieve, innovation at scale and at speed.
Yes.
That must be delivered if you have to lead the way in your industry. And partners like us, we have our own ecosystem, academia, labs. How do you see a perfect synergy where we really play a big role in your innovation journey?
There is a lot that I want to share with all of you. As I think about partners like HCL, one is you work with so many different clients, you know what good looks like. And do not shortchange that because when you're working in a business like ours, we have a limited view to our industry. And I think there's some things that we can learn from other industries through partners like HCLTech. So I think that's one, visibility to what good looks like. In terms of scale, again, you work with customers that operate at the global scale and at the local scale and everything in between. And I think that's one of the many things that we appreciate about engagements with partners like HCLTech. 3 is speed. And so I am really big on speed. And the idea here is I want progress over perfection. And sometimes when you work in companies, there is a not invented here mentality, right? So no, we're going to build it ourselves and it has to be perfect. And what really should take 2 weeks can take 2 years. And I think that being able to access high quality and high caliber talent through partners like HCL allow us to accelerate the development of customer value in a way that we couldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
So those are just a few of the things. You know, and maybe I'll add one other thing. Where we need talent for certain technologies, you all have that muscle well developed. And you have access to talent in different geographies that we could not ever develop ourselves. And I think that's another area that partners like HCLTech can really help us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was talking to some other utility CIO said that we are in the business of delivering safe, reliable, sustainable electricity, right? And the talent requirement that is there for the generational change that is happening in the industry, it's tremendous. And the expectation that we build at scale and we work as an extension of your team, I think that need is very well spoken of in the industry, and customers talk about that. So how do you see, if we truly need to work as an extension of your team, what we really need to do to be your extension?
You know, so what I would say is that in the electric utility industry today, in the energy industry today, the scaling of technology, and I'm not just talking about digital technologies, I'm talking about engineering technologies, is as high as it's ever been. You heard me talk about electric vehicles. I think the scale of electric vehicles is going to ramp up tenfold over the next 5 to 10 years. As I think about solar panels, people generating their own electrons, that will also scale up. And look no further than in the United States, where we have tens of billions of dollars of federal incentives that are inviting people to adopt these new technologies. You've got geopolitical dynamics, because with the, Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, you have a lot of countries that want to go energy independent right now because they lost their gas supplies. So I think stitching all of this together requires digital technology expertise as well as engineering and operational technology expertise. And I think you all work with clients every day to do exactly that. And I think that's the advice that I would offer, is help us scale that, because we don't want to be in a place where customers adopt their own technologies. They will, but if they did it at scale, it actually puts pressure on everybody else that's on the system. And so the poorest customers that we have would actually bear a higher burden of the cost. And I think that the work that you all do to help companies like us actually offers a degree of equity, social equity, that not very many companies can offer or even consider.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to close out with one question on cybersecurity. It's more workload moving to cloud, computing moving to edge, open technologies. So how do you see a particular strategy to make sure all these initiatives, they have a strong cybersecurity backbone?
Yeah, the way that I think about cybersecurity, or I should say that we think about cybersecurity at Portland General, there was the old, I'm going to call it the old sort of mantra of, I think they call it the M&M strategy, where it's a hard shell on the outside and it's soft on the inside. We're spending a lot of time doing segmentation, because it's not a question of if we're going to experience a breach, it's a question of when.
When, yeah.
And I tell my wife that too. I said, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be this job, because something's going to happen eventually. But to the extent that we can control, this is a bit of a military term that we use, but if we can control the blast radius, so when something happens, if you can contain it, that's kind of the approach that we're taking. And so when I think about all of the digital technologies and engineering technologies that we just mentioned, having the ability to containerize or modularize those integrations or those components allows us to reduce the blast radius when something happens. Not if, but when it happens.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for your time. But I will ask you, any final words to the Portland General team at HCL, the work they are doing, any expectations from you, what they should look forward to?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you again for having me to this session. My sort of parting words for all of you that are working on the Portland General account, I said this to Saurabh and many other HCLTech leaders over lunch today. Our goal is to be the best in the world for our customers. And what that means is that we're adopting the best technologies. And so those of you that have worked on the Portland General account know that you get to work with the best technologies. I mentioned Oracle C2M. We're the first in the US, the third in the world to do that. I also would say that you get to work, I thank you for working with a company that is supporting customers. This is something that is really meaningful. And I think the older that I have gotten, the more that I want to work on projects that have meaning in the world. And so if you're working on a Portland General account, you get to have that experience. And I think that's quite rewarding. And maybe the last thing that I would say is that the work that you're doing is not only helping to elevate your skill sets and working with what I would call a necessary good, right? This is electricity that everybody needs to sustain their lives, to elevate the quality of their lives. But this is something that you can take, to other clients around the world, other utilities around the world, so that you can say, here's how the best is doing it. And I love the idea of having sort of the best of utilities working with the best of technology in HCLTech to develop the best solutions. So thank you very much for being a part of that.
Yeah, necessary good. Let's leave it at that. Nice words. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for your time. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.